During this occasion, we are going to talk about an important topic and more specifically, the future of shared services in Hungary. And we are all aware that in a highly unconventional period for service centers, and therefore it becomes important to discuss what really goes on in the industry. So the webinar today will be split into a total of 6 rounds, during which questions will be put forward to our respective panelists. These questions and the answers are expected to shed light on the challenges faced by the industry, not only related to COVID, but also on a larger scale as well. So first, we will address the topic of growth potential in light of COVID to see what kind of impact and risk the corona crisis has on service centers. Next, we will talk about Hungary's competitiveness relative to other countries in relation to the industry. In the third round, we are going to talk about operational models and location preferences of companies in light of recent developments. Next, the topic of retaining business activities within Hungary is going to be addressed as well. And lastly, we will explore the possibilities of sector-wide cooperation and HOA's role within this industry. So the webinar will be finalized by the Q&A session. In the meantime, please use the chat room to raise your questions. We will very closely monitor those questions. So if relevant question is addressed in terms of the specific section, we will coordinate to make sure that the panelists will be able to answer that. Otherwise, at the end of the session, we will address the remaining questions. Please kindly mute your microphones and enjoy the webinar. And with this, I would like to hand over to our panel moderator, Vera Csajtai.
Good afternoon. I am Vera Csajtai. I am leading the Organization and Operations Center for IFOA Horvat and Partners in Hungary, and I'm going to be the moderator of today's session. And I'm really happy to have 10 very talented and powerful speakers today who were up to participate. And what Monica hasn't mentioned is the taboos, because we are willing to talk about without taboos, about basic and fundamental questions on the current changes and the situation within the Hungarian service center sector. So I would like to invite our participants to have a short introduction and start with the first question: how corona situation had an impact and what kind of risks they see in the future operation. And also I would be really interested to see about their opinion on the future growth potential in the sector. I ask Melanie to start first.
Thank you, Vera, and hello everyone, and thanks for joining. So my name is Melanie Seymour. I used to be Hungarian. I used to head up the operations for BlackRock in Hungary. I came out in 2017 to set the office up, and probably looking at all the panelists, I'm still one of the new girls, and we're still 3-4 years in, still one of the newest operations. We now have 800 people in Hungary. So we went from 0 to 800 in 4 years through a whole range of operations, from investment teams to technologists, through to the more standard shared service center type functions, but really a microcosm of BlackRock sitting in Hungary. And I think I'd like to be in very positive talk about more of the opportunities than the challenges and risks, because I think what Corona has shown us, and definitely across our global offices, is some of the barriers to move into different locations has always been that proximity to other businesses, the proximity to the investors, the proximity to the clients. And I think we've seen that isn't as important. We've all managed to do that working at home. We're 16,000 people in BlackRock, are still probably 95% of us working at home. And that hasn't hampered our ability to deliver. So I do think it brings an opportunity to maybe look at some of the functions that had reservations about moving to more of a central operation center, shared service, whatever, however we call it. I think it opens that opportunity to rethink those conversations, actually look again at what that model could be and how we do get that growth, and not just growth from the type of functions we've seen in the past, but also some more of those higher value functions.
Thanks a lot. Pravin?
Right, great. Thank you, Vera, and thank you, Melanie, for kicking us off. My name is Praveen Anthony. I represent IBM. I'm currently the global RPA leader for human resources for IBM globally. I've been working and living in Hungary and specifically Budapest for about 8 years now. Prior to my current role, I was also leading the delivery center for about 5 years until January of this year. So, just continuing on where Melanie, sorry, there's a little bit of background noise. Continuing where Melanie left off is basically from a COVID standpoint, currently where we see the impact is that over the last many months and years, there were organizations which started or have been thinking about starting their digital organization. So being a digital company or a digital organization is no longer a competitive advantage, but it's a business imperative today. That said, industry analysis show us that if you had about 30-40% of companies thinking about being a digital organization prior to COVID, today have more than 60% of the organizations across industries and across sectors thinking about being a digital organization. So that has had two impacts, obviously. One is that the decisions and directions are being decided at a corporate level. It's no longer specific to a sector or a company or a region. And then from a talent standpoint, the availability of talent is now made available across regions and organizations and not specific to a particular location. So we think that it will have impact in terms of the way we hire talent across organizations and across skills. We also believe the fact that companies are now becoming more digital, which means the roles of individuals across industries will change into what we call as techno-functional roles. It's no longer enough if we have the process-specific knowledge or functional knowledge particular to finance or human resources or even procurement, but also a certain level of expertise and knowledge as far as automation and RPA is concerned. From the other question, yes, that's where we thrive in terms of our competitive advantage.
Thanks a lot. It's already answered some of our round questions as well, but I would like to hear István's opinion about the question as well.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is István Katona. I am the managing director of Celanese Service Center here in Budapest. We established this center more than 13 years ago now, and now we have more than 400 people who are providing service in finance, supply chain, procurement, and IT, not just to Europe, but now to America as well. And I also do see this current circumstances and situation much more as an opportunity for our sector than a threat or a risk, because many symptoms just remind me the situation where we were in 2008 when we had the economic crisis, and basically that was the only time and for the sector in Hungary, which was growing still in the economic crisis in Hungary. And that was the time when many companies, headquarters, just used this opportunity to decide whether they would like to establish centers in this area or specifically in Hungary. And I do see this as an opportunity for the companies, for the headquarters to assess the current situation, saying that maybe to pull more processes, more functions under the current centers and the shared service umbrella.
Thanks a lot. I give the floor to Prabal.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Vera, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Monica and the HOA team for organizing this and inviting me in this forum. and the audience for tuning in to listen to us. Though I see many familiar faces, I meet them every day, but nevertheless, they get to see others. For those who do not know me, I'm Prabal Datta. I'm the Managing Director for Tata Consulting Services in Hungary. And I also take care of TCS operation in Eastern Europe. In Hungary, we are since 2001. So we can say we are one of the early adopters of Hungary. And Hungary has been very good to us. And today we are about 2,700 people supporting more than 80 customers around the world from Hungary and multiple service lines. So exciting journey so far, and we are looking forward to more in the coming days. In regard to the particular question that you asked Vera, about impact on COVID, so of course we should not forget that this has been a situation once in our lifetime, that way the human life and the economy and the businesses have been impacted everywhere, right? So whether it is loss of life, shrinkage of business, some industries have been impacted very badly, travel and hospitality, etc. But on the other hand, it has also helped us to accelerate the digital transformation that Praveen also alluded to, that companies across the board are adopting digital is much faster space to either looking for new way of doing business or new businesses for that matter. And so essentially it is changing how we work and how we support our customers, right? The fact that we have been all working remotely for more than a year now proved that remote working is possible. And that what means is it leads to the talent cloud that Praveen also referred to, right? So overall, I would say the outlook for this industry is very positive, but at the same time, it demands a certain amount of preparation from our side. And the companies or the countries which has the right policies, systems, and most importantly, skills are very well positioned to gain in this situation. So I would say it is positive. Obviously, there will be challenges, but it is more to look forward to than protect ourselves from.
Thanks a lot.
You, Vera.
Thanks. I give the floor to Jeroen.
Yes, good afternoon, and great to be here with all of you, my panelists, as well as the audience. My name is Jeroen Strating. I'm one of the managing directors of the ExxonMobil Global Business Center here in Budapest, currently employing a bit over 2,000 employees. I'm also the global commercial operations manager, supporting all of our upstream operations around the globe. I've been in Budapest since April last year, so coming up for 2 years. Been extremely fortunate to have a year with no restrictions, where me, my wife, and our 5 children had the opportunity to enjoy a lot of this beautiful city that we're in, but also the country. And previously, I held mainly commercial positions in the Netherlands and spent a significant time in the United Kingdom. So on the question on the impact risk of the Corona crisis on service centers, I'm like Melanie. I'm an optimist, but also, as Prabal said, some industry have been hit hard, and the oil and gas sector is one of them. Just a glimpse at our 2020 full year results. I was about to say earnings, but there were no earnings. Clearly highlighted as being a tough time, and yet with that, there's 2 silver linings I see with that. First of all, the virtualization of work really challenged the biases. Melanie mentioned it as well, and I would say it's the distance bias. So hey, we need to be close to where some of the action is. I think that has really been challenged, and we've proven to be able to work remotely, and as such, we see a lot more work moving from Western, Northwest Europe, as well as the US to Budapest. So I think that's one silver lining. The second one is that, in times of crisis, you really reconsider your model and look hard at your internal organization. And we did that as well in ExxonMobil. And one of the things we really looked at is, hey, where do we want to source our capabilities in the future? Where is that most cost-effective place to do that? And I'm very pleased that the Budapest organization here, that's been around for 15, 60 years now, has proven to the corporation that we are a place where a lot more capabilities can be sourced going forward. So, in summary, despite all the personal tragedy and impact which supersede any business decisions and impact, in my view, from a business perspective, I see the future very brightly, with a lot of growth potential for our GBC network around the globe, but also definitely here in Budapest.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for the positive messages. I would now give the floor to Rahul.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rahul, and basically I feel like a veteran on this floor with the HOA. I've been in Budapest for 10 years now, and all these 10 years I've proudly spent with Avis Budget Group. And I feel the pain for Jeroen, because we know why oil and gas sector is impacted, because we are not renting as many cars, or let's say our customers are not able to travel and rent cars. So like many other organizations, around the globe, the global coronavirus hit our business very hard as well. The travel restrictions has led to a decline in number of people hiring cars, but people are also seeing car rental as a safe, flexible, private alternative to public transport. And that is a positive sign I want to start my introduction with. I'm working as Director Operations and Global Process Owner for Order to Cash. In our terms, we call it Quote to Cash. And we have tremendous opportunities ahead of us, because the moment pandemic hit, we quickly acted as an organization. Our key initiatives were to protect our people, customers, and business. Although we took some hard measures, right-sizing our fleet and aligning our headcount as well, which was there in the news in Hungary, but we kind of matched our demand to our situation in the market. On a group level, we took it as an opportunity, and as our customers were hesitant to have a more touch point with people, we immediately acted and started to move towards digitization initiative for us. So we want our customers to be comfortable when they drive the car, providing them clean cars. We are aiming to provide a fast, safe, and easy vehicle hire. And as we are transforming our front office car rental experience for our customers, we have to transform and evolve our back office operations as well. So our boardroom doesn't just wait for vaccines to arrive, and they are indeed working on planning for the next steps and redefining our future target operating model as well. And Budapest, being our key strategic site, is in the talk, and we are looking at newer opportunities for growth and create a new normal. I'm really looking forward to this panel, and thanks for gathering everyone together today, Monica.
Thanks a lot, Rahul. And I ask Paul to join us now.
Thank you very much. So very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Gazda, and I work for the company whose purpose is the relentless pursuit of a world that works better for people. And the reason I start with that, because when I think about Corona and the impact, I gotta think about the people, because we are in the people business. And the success of our business really depends on like how comfortable our colleagues are in the current situation and working from home, and how successfully we can create that environment that the whole business can continue. My background is that born and raised in Hungary, and the last 10 years I spent in the sector. First I was working with a GE Capital company, then a global operation, and once the strategic direction changed for GE, and they sold the captive part to Genpact. For the last 2 years, I've been with this company. In terms of growth potentials, there are a couple of things we are seeing. One is that it's a very comfortable position for us to be in a BPO that has legs in multiple segments, so we are less exposed to that. But the challenge is that how we can very quickly channel resources and capabilities from one sector to another. Let's just use an example that, the hospitality industry is really taking a hit now, and basically transactional services is going down 90-95%. So that creates a lot of capacity. Meanwhile, retail, pharmaceutical is hiking up, and they have a surge capacity. So then the question is like how we can channel very quickly capabilities, and that is through learning opportunities, and that is through virtualization, which happen now. So I think this whole situation presented a whole new horizon for the companies to create that continuous learning environment, and also the capabilities of quickly moving workforce from one end of the company to another. And from a growth perspective overall, I think a lot of companies are suffering. There's cost pressure, margin pressure, and organizations tend to, in this situation, look into that. What is their core activities, where they want to put the resources they have, and everything else they would allow someone else who can do it in a much more cost-efficient way, or maybe in even a better way to service that. So I think it's a very, very positive outlook. It's still happening, and I think the virtualization, the technology growth, and the expansion of these has really showed many organizations who were reluctant about outsourcing that this is a very viable opportunity, how they can drive their business forward.
Thanks a lot. And I ask Juanita to join us now.
Thanks, Vera. So my name is Vanita Austin, and I'm the country director and center head for Tech Mahindra Hungary. Of the expat CEOs, I think I would be the oldest one here. So I arrived in Hungary in 2008 for 6 months, and I'm still here. So it's been very long 6 months, if I can say that. I worked in logistics, finance. I started my career as an IT technician, a software programmer, and a statistician for the Ohio Senate office. And for the last 3 years, I've been working with Tech Mahindra. So I would, echo the sentiments of the speakers before me. And I would say that our main asset at Tech Mahindra, besides the technology and the intellectual property that we have, are our people. And our goal over this last year during the pandemic has been to figure out how to keep our people safe. And our good luck is that we are in a flourishing industry. So if you think about who the IT company employs and what our leadership team is composed of, so as an IT technician myself, I was working from home with a dial-up modem and a rented desktop way back in 2001. So when the pandemic struck, we technicians went back to our place of origin, and we said, yes, we can do this at home. Or even in my last job with Unisys, I was working from home for 7.5 years. So it was our place of regular business. But I've seen that other industries have struggled. They have been in some ways able to understand, this well-known secret that the IT industry knows, that yes, work from home is possible. There are remote tools and products that have been put in place over the years. They are in place. They just have to be extended, well, not to 25% of the workforce or 50% of the workforce, but then, in today's times, to more than 90% of the workforce. And this presents companies like Tech Mahindra with unique growth potential. So we saw, as the shift started to happen, that support requirements for remote products and technologies increased. We also noticed that the need for support for data security has increased, whether it's data security locally or if it is to do with cloud security solutions. We've also seen, the need for increased digitization for other industries that the IT industry can support. So there is growth on the cards for us. If you ask me what else helped us keep things together during the pandemic, with regards to remote working, I would give you an example of something that we did at Tech Mahindra, and we did this pre-COVID. So we had this work that we had to do for a customer, and it was in Swahili. So the resources were hired in Kenya for work from home. The recruiters were in Malaysia, and our operations manager was in Hungary and Budapest. So we just took that principle, and instead of applying it to say 10% of our business, it is now being applied to our entire operation. And the future of the industry is going to be, something odd like this. And really, the IT industry set an example of what can be done. We've leveraged whatever innovations have been put in place in the last 2 decades, and we've made it happen overnight in Tech Mahindra at least. So that's that.
Hier, guck mal, ich habe diese Google-App gefunden und guck mal, was ich hier gesehen
Sorry,
habe.
Tom. Tom, can you make yourself on mute, please? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Juanita, and for the interesting example. I am curious about whether Kornél has the same experiment and the same type of opportunity-driven view on this question.
Yeah, hi, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this topic. My name is Kornél Csajtai, and I'm the center head for Cognizant Hungary. Cognizant is one of the world's leading professional services, or in simpler terms, outsourcing organizations. And it's headquartered in the US, but it has a substantial footprint in India. Cognizant Hungary was established in 2008 as the first European delivery center of Cognizant. And currently there are more than 1,000 people working in this center in multilingual infrastructure, business process outsourcing, IT consultancy, finance and accounting, and life science, clinical, safety and regulatory services. I've been with Cognizant for the last 9 years. When I've joined, there were around 180 people, and now we have this 1,000 landmark. And I'm responsible for delivery and operations in Hungary. The impact of COVID for us, it's very interesting to hear the same experience. I'm not surprised. Actually, I have felt myself like the cat in the Matrix film. We had to reshake ourselves, and everything had to be rewired actually for this new way of operations, be it in physical perspective. We had to move everything. Actually, we were very successful moving the whole operations to work from home model within two weeks. All these taboos of having voice support only possible from an office is gone, and now we are doing everything from home. Or be it security, we had to install, actually 50% of my laptop's resources are running security services, so antivirus, anti-whatever. And shortly after we moved to work from home model, Cognizant was attacked with a ransomware. And actually that was a huge exercise for us to get remediated. And as a matter of fact, we have come out from this attack very well, because now we have also gained the reputation of having high level and effective security services appreciated by the clients. Also, the impact was in engagement. Actually, whatever we did in employee engagement, we had to cancel. It was somehow connected with our office premises, and now we have to rethink everything from employer branding and employee engagement perspective, and we have to be very creative, not to be just a payroll for our employees, but rather provide a Cognizant culture as such. And of course, from clients' perspective, the impact is huge, because clients have their own struggles and or their changes as well. And this outsourcing industry is really a kind of mirror of the industry going on. What is going on in the industry, and therefore we have to be very adaptive. How BCP, business continuity, looks like, or how governance looks like, or how the work is organized with working from home, and we have to be very proactive in this regard. And from growth perspective, as many of us have already mentioned, First of all, because of the work from home concept, even highly regulated industries become more open for outsourcing with remote deliveries. So there is a very positive trend for us outsourcers to help our clients in this journey. Of course, the digitalization is also accelerated. The worldwide talent shortage is apparent. So locations are really getting more focus everywhere, and the shortage can be through the automation and digitalization kind of remediated. I'm not sure that it's AI and everything will be so fast, but it is boosting the demand for our services. Actually, it's crying for our services. So I see a very positive trend in terms of growth.
Thanks a lot. And I ask Miklós to close the first round.
Sure, happy to welcome everyone. Thanks for having me. Koczor, my name, leading the center here in Budapest for GBS. Thermo Scientific is the company name. And we've been similar to BlackRock, a pretty new player in Hungary. The business has been set up 2 years ago here, and we've been growing to a level of 400 by now. Services provided for finance, customer service, recently migrated 70 IT COE roles, cybersecurity, payroll. So the certain varieties is growing and growing, and we have certainly significant plans as we go forward. Now, Thermo Fisher Scientific is probably pretty unique in that sense, and if I'm talking about the pandemic impact, we are the world leader in serving science and therefore involved in more than 200 projects related to coronavirus only. We are currently the largest PCR test providers globally. 30 million PCR tests produced on a weekly basis. And that also brought its challenges because as we were growing last year by close to 200 roles, at the same time we certainly had to cope with the pandemic impact, and we had to shuffle teams around. And many of you mentioned people being our one and only asset. We had to really care about that. And while we were doing that, we had to make sure that we are also providing the right services to our business. So the challenge was how to cope with the increased demand. The company globally grew 26% organically last year, and we were struggling with dealing that. We were bringing in many temporary sources. We were reorganizing teams, how to make that happen, that needs to happen. And why that was super important is the impact on the people, and beside the business certainly, being part of something that helps to fight against the pandemic, has been building really great energies and a really great engagement within the company. So I felt it wasn't only the colleagues sitting in the business who were very, very proud of being part of that game and being a very important key player fighting against the pandemic, but everyone here in shared services felt the same, and that gave an additional boost. So from that terms, we were lucky, but then also probably different challenges than in other industries. And the future on your question, to me, it looks absolutely bright. And I'm not only thinking about our business, healthcare industry, but I think the SSC sector as such in Hungary has a great future ahead, and probably we are going to touch base on that in the next questions, why I feel about that.
Thanks a lot, and I was really excited to hear so many positive things in your resumes. I counted like out of 10, 9 were extremely positive about the future. So I would be really happy to hear about Prabal's opinion about when we are talking about this flourishing future, what could be the biggest competitiveness of Hungary if we are giving a regional or a global overview on this question.
Thank you, Vera. It's a interesting question to perspective to look at. See, Hungary has a lot of things going for it, and that's why we have so many successful shared service centers, business service centers, and service providers like us here and growing. Like whether it is the talent pool, whether it is the geographical locations, or whether it is the business climate, there are many things going for it. And as in my role, I have to interact with business development agencies in different countries. And the one that we have in Hungary is definitely one of the best that we have. So there are quite a few positives. But in the current situation, and as all my fellow panelists said, most of them, that the situation is, the outlook is very positive. But these are macroeconomic outlook, which is true for all countries. So including our neighbors who are also working in this industry, it is true for them, right? So what is it that we need to do it differently or to make us more competitive? Now, in my view, there are 5, I would say, basic things. I call them basic because this kind of an anagram that comes up. First of all, it has to be, the environment has to be very much business aligned, meaning the processes, policies, the framework, everything has to be very business aligned. Just to give an example, suppose a country wants to invite for manufacturing players to set up base there. Then it cannot afford to have a high import regime to protect domestic manufacturers, right? Because most of the global players or big players would have a global supply chain. So the moment you put a high import duty regime, they would not like to come to that country there, right? This is true for, I mean, there are many examples of these things, and this is true for our industries as well. Right? Secondly, every industry needs a talent pool for that industry. So for any industry, for a country to attract one industry, the talent pool has to be available at an affordable cost point. And companies would be ready to go there only if that is there. And secondly, this talent pool also has to be something that can be skilled and scaled. Because what is the need for today, that will change. As many of my fellow panelists said, that digital adoptions or technological changes are happening, and it's happening faster than before, right? And this is true for any industry. This is true for any industry. The manufacturing models that we had earlier, or any industry that you take has been influenced by the advancement of technology. So there is a need for reskilling. So the countries which will have skilled labor, which can be skilled and scaled, and also their affordable space, policies, business alignment. And fourth, I would say, is the innovations angle, innovation focus, because even in COVID, we are seeing while companies are trying to optimize their operations and moving one operation from one location to the other location, yes, that is an optimization in terms of cost base, but bigger or faster optimization comes when you introduce technology into it, right? So and innovativeness, and by virtue of having so much of possibilities the digital technologies can bring in, there is a plethora of startups and innovative companies that are coming in solutions. So how good is our innovation ecosystem in the country? And lastly, as I said, this is the 5 basic. Lastly is the collaboration. So there are agencies, associations who work on this same thing, but are they collaborating or are they competing, right? So for a country to be successful and competitive in the market, these agencies have to collaborate. So the government policies and the agencies like HOA or American Chamber of Commerce or any other agencies that work have to collaborate. Even industries have to collaborate for a common goal. So once we have these 5 basics in the way, we can compete. Now, what does Hungary stand in this ecosystem? I mean, I think the World Economic Forum recent report on competitiveness gives us a very clear picture. And if you look at it, among our neighbors, V4 neighbors, there are some areas where we are ahead, which is infrastructure, but there are areas where we need to work upon. They are like education, they're like taxation. Okay. So And then how do we focus? I mean, the good thing is at least we know what are the areas we need to work on: education, labor force, taxation. These are 3 areas where there's a significant scope of improvement. Right? So if you know where to work on, it becomes much easier for us. But the good news is, when McKinsey did a recent study for Hungarian government about the growth forecast, they said that Hungary can get back to post-COVID the 4% rate of growth of GDP in maybe next 5-6 years time. Right? Interesting part is this 4% is further broken, and obviously they've given recommendation of which industry focus, etc. And of course, self-service industry is one of the focus areas for this GDP growth. Right? It comes with 1% with increase in employment. Because Hungary, with the truth, that Hungary is not a big country. So increase when we are already at, if I remember correctly, we are at, I think we are at 65-66% of employability, right? And the Europe average is somewhat around 75. So while the percentage you may say it is 10% more, but the number of people is not that big that the employable people are actually employed. Unemployment is not at all high. So increase in employment is one angle of GDP growth, but that is only 1%. 3% comes from productivity growth. How do we do more with what we have? And therein the question comes of innovation. The question comes of the technological training. Question comes of investing for the future. So in my view, there is a balance to be maintained. Now, wherein for all the organizations who are present in this discussion today, we all have a short-term view which is good for our company, right? And of course, we would like to have that for us individually. But for a country to be competitive, we have to look at, while of course country were to make us, the investors happy, but we also have to take a little longer term view so that it can be competitive and remain competitive. Right?
Thanks a lot, Prabal. I would also, it's really interesting your point, and thanks a lot for gathering so much data, but I would be happy to hear others' opinion because we have so many questions to go ahead.
No problem, please go ahead. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions you can set up.
Yeah, but this was really interesting, and you already partly answered some of my questions to Jeroen and Melanie. That
happy to help them.
How we can attract more and more businesses to come to Hungary. And perhaps you can reflect to Prabal's discussion because he made very interesting points. How do you see? And I give the floor to Jeroen.
Yeah, thanks. I think Prabal hit on a number of very good points. Let's start looking at our own organization, right? I think you always need to start at your own. What can we do to attract more and more operations? Well, in very simple terms, is delivering on what the businesses across the globe are asking for us. Right? It's as simple as that. If we're not delivering on that, then they will look at all the alternatives. I mean, just for ExxonMobil, we have 8 global business centers, a few in Latin America, 2 in Europe, I guess, known Prague and Budapest, and we have a few in the Far East. They're not competing with each other, but clearly, they all need to deliver. So I think that's what you can start. And how do we do that? By really educating our employees, make sure there's continuous development. So that's what we can do. If I look a little bit more outside, what can we do as an industry or as a sector? I think we can, collaborate, cooperate to make sure that our sector is portrayed as attractive as possible to our future, candidates. So the people in universities, that they are excited about work in this sector. Probably hit on it. I mean, for me, the key one, number one priority is to make sure we continue to have access to a very high skilled workforce. It may sound a bit strange because I'm representing oil and gas company, but in the core, we are doing people business. It's the people that will deliver us the results. I mean, from Budapest, we're not going out to the rigs, we're not drilling wells in the Arctic or wherever. It's people business, and it's supporting those organizations. So access to highly skilled workforce, I think, is key. It's in all our interest, because ultimately we're all fishing in the same pool. So if we make that pool wider, deeper, whatever energy you want to use, that's going to benefit us all. We can do something of that as a sector, and I think we also, should not be afraid to ask also the government to make sure they keep up the level of investment in education. Because one thing we know for sure, without being able to predict the future, but the skills needed in 2-3 years' time will be different than the skills we need now. And we need to really think about what are those skills. It probably will be a lot more in the digital space, and also make sure that the universities, that they develop those skills that are needed to grow the business. Another thing that I think is needed is make sure, and I'm looking then again a little bit more towards outside of our own company, is to make sure that the business environment, Prabal hit on it, stays very business friendly. It was one of the reasons that we, ExxonMobil, joined here about 15-16 years ago, and it's important that we continue that. And with that, it means also stability and regulations, tax, etc. For us as a company, we like that. I think every company likes that, because we really see this as being in for the long run, right? We want a long term. I think we're demonstrating that with our commitment to a new office that we're going to move into early next year, in the pillar building, where we're really going to allow for that growth that comes. So I think those are, I would say, the three things that are needed. Access to a highly skilled workforce, business friendly, and a stable regulatory environment. Then I think the other question, which you may come on a little bit later, but I just put out there, because you asked us to be provocative and no taboos, is kind of, okay, well, more and more operations. I think we also need to think about, does that mean we want to do everything, or do we want to specify on a few key areas where we want to really beat the competition as Hungary? And what I mean beat the competition is Czech Republic, Poland, other countries in our neighborhood. So I think that's maybe for later on, and maybe some of my other panelists can comment on that. But that's also important, that that we're not trying to do everything for the sake of doing everything, but that we are really focused and targeted on what is it that really makes us unique, and how can we leverage and build on that as a sector. And if the sector does well, all of our companies will do well. That's my true belief. So Melanie, over to you on some of your reflections.
So I think both of you have covered lots of the points, but I think one addition to that, because I agree with everything you've said, is how do we ensure that branding gets out there more broadly? If you look at somewhere like Poland, globally, people look to Poland when they think, like you said, where are shared service centers? Where's a good place to outsource? People would talk about Poland, Czech Republic. I think we have an opportunity to really think about what do we want that branding to be for Hungary? What do we want to talk about in terms of the talents, the opportunities, and how do we all become really good role models for what we have achieved in our centres? Because I think all of us and all of you that I know well aren't traditional shared service centres as people globally would look at them. We're performing real high value activities. We have got some of the, I have some people doing work in Budapest that we couldn't find that talent in San Francisco. And I think these stories, both for companies coming to attract them, but also to build that talent and build that talent all the way through. I used to talk about making Hungary a place, or Budapest a place to live, study, work. How do we attract more people to come and study? How do we get people that do study to live here? How do we attract people to come back, especially Hungarians? And how does this become that attractive place to build your operations and really work there? And I think there's a branding piece that we could collectively, as an organization, as a country, do more of in positioning ourselves in a really good place.
Thanks a lot. And we received a question from András Kohl. Is there any skills where Hungary is really struggling, missing, or don't have the real scale? And I would be happy if who hasn't joined to this round would answer to this question. Who is willing to answer?
Maybe I can take a shot of it, because since we do a wide variety of work compared to a regular business support center, while the work that Melanie pointed out could be very high end, but the variety is definitely more for a service provider. And I would say the newest technologies were in to focus more on to like data scientists. And you have to understand that we also have to have focus what Melanie and Jeroen both mentioned. What is that we want to do? We do not have to do everything, and it may not make sense to do everything from here, right? So what does it make sense to do from here? And data analytics could be one that is meaningful to do it from here, because like GDPR sensitivity or like closeness to the customer and things like that. And there we see a gap of availability, and which can be easily bridged if we all come together and create that platform. That is definitely one. And of course, there are occasional demands for cloud-based technologies or this or that. That is always there, but this is something is there and can be bridged and can work for Hungary. That's what my view is.
Thanks.
Sorry, very interesting, because exactly the same words I wanted to say as Prabal with the data scientist, and let's understand why. Because the whole environment, the digitization is based on data. And if it's not, this is not about having a shared service center and that kind of data scientist work servicing other companies or even the mother companies, but rather if the country wants to develop and based on digital services, we have to deal with data. And I don't want to go to current situation with data management regarding the pandemics, but obviously the data science is a real strategic area where in the country we have to develop.
And we can make it a brand, what Melanie was referring to, right? Which our competition, so to say, neighboring countries has not done yet.
Thanks a lot. And we are going to the third round question. As you already mentioned in the introductory part, that COVID changed and will have a huge effect on our operational model. My question is, how do you see how the virtual operational models would affect location decisions in country-wise or in region-wise? And how do you see, are there expected changes in your operational model and delivery model due to the corona situation? What Melanie mentioned, that the barriers are over. So how do you see the situation now? And I ask Kornél to join.
Yeah, personally, I think the COVID-19 has shown us that this online-based virtual delivery will be the future. So working from anywhere will be the model. So I've seen also within our company as well in some countries where they have actually posted that join us, you can work from anywhere. So this approach is revolutionary opposed to the previous times. And our clients and we have to learn how to adapt to the situation, starting from the security perspectives and to the governance and employee engagement as well. I think the times are over when shopping around, finding and establishing new physical locations is the ultimate tool for finding new talent and getting labor cost arbitrage. Rather, we are excited about exploring virtual hubs based on utilizing existing locations and remote working anywhere. I mean, I can imagine the workforce being spread over in different countries, but the leadership or governance layer would be in one of the appointed centers, for example, or we see a more balancing out the labor cost across the CE centers. So not the cost will be the driving factor, but the location related specialties or skill base. It's not so easy to establish those new locations. It's not a short-term approach, and we have our strengths in the existing locations anyway. So, adding to that, regarding these skills, how to manage this environment and setup, it requires different capabilities and abilities. So skills for managing these complex setups will be highly sought for. We have opened also the Pandora's box. Employees clearly see the benefits of sleeping longer in the morning and have more times for the hobbies in the evening, instead of traveling to the or commuting. So to remain attractive, we have to offer this remote working and virtual model for the long term. So I think there is no way back.
Thanks a lot. And Vanita, please.
So I would echo a lot of points that Kornél brought up. For us, there will be two main influences that will drive how much we will work virtually, from what location will we perform our work in the future. And these two drivers are going to really be employees and customers. If I bring it down to the basics, if I'm really reductive about this. So if I go back and refer to the HOA survey, where about 47 of the people surveyed, gave a preference for continuing to work from home. Our own internal Tech Mahindra Hungary well-being survey came out at 45%. So that really is the voice of the employee. About half of the workforce would like to continue to work from home, to work virtually. So we have to enable this, which means that there are opportunities. It allows us to use Hungary as a hub and to spread out into countries where our potential future workforce lies. On the other hand, as somebody from the tech industry now, I can safely say that productivity has not gone down. In fact, in some areas, we've seen an increase in productivity. We've seen an increase in employee well-being because, with COVID and the general this feeling that employees have of wanting to be closer to their families, of wanting proximity to their loved ones, that can be fulfilled, with virtual, with a virtual work environment, with an opportunity to work from home. But there is also this other factor, which is, what are our customers asking for? And Kornél, is a lot of work that Cognizant and TCS do. While it's a wide variety of work and it's mixed, we also hear a lot from our technology side, from our engineers, from our IT businesses. And there's another, old-fashioned industry, which is the finance industry. And I used to be part of that. I used to work for JP Morgan, and I follow them closely. And we've heard comments from CEOs of Barclays or JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs more recently, who don't think of what's happening today as the new normal. And they would want to go back to the old ways of working where people are back in the office. So we've got that push from them. So I really see two solutions for the future, and we'll have to find a happy medium. So there will be companies, and we have existing customers who are looking for centralization. So they want to nearshore now. They don't want to offshore to countries like India or to the Far East. They want to bring the business in, for example, to a location in Europe, so that they can have access to their back offices. They have the freedom to fly in, once the EU restrictions open up, instead of trying to figure out in these uncertain times how to get halfway across the world. And they are willing to make that investment to centralize operations in a nearshore country. And then we've got tech companies, our customers, who have come back and said, well, 90% of your workforce is working from home, so you can do it from anywhere. And Poland's come up, like Melanie rightly pointed out. It's the new superstar in the region. So why can't we do Polish work from Poland? Or why can't we do other languages that are available in Poland from there? Or why can't we do Portuguese from Lisbon, for example? So localization, where Hungary acts like a hub or Germany acts like a hub, and our workforce is placed in countries where, we have our customer offices. So here, companies like TCS, Cognizant, BlackRock, Tech Mahindra, bigger companies will have an advantage because we have legal entity presence in these countries. We can scale up work from home operations in these countries. So that will work to our benefit, this whole hub and spoke model, and we can do that. So tech companies, if you look at Dell, which was 25% pre-pandemic work from home, now it wants to be almost fully work from home and continue in that way. Hot desking in Hungary is not a new concept. It was in place in Unisys from 2009. So for them, for example, this is not a new idea. Facebook has openly come out and said that they are working on remote presence technology and products. And Google is going to go back to working in the office only partially in September. And every few months, they push out the deadline. So these companies will influence the way we work in the future, service providers work in the future. And lastly, I would touch upon the point of education of the workforce, which is, like Melanie said, she's becoming my favorite person very quickly. It's not just a branding exercise. So one of the things that I like to do in my free time is I'm a visiting faculty at Csajtai, and I visit them on behalf of ELTE. And the thing that I do is try to train already qualified medical professionals, so doctors, nurses, pharmacists who want to pursue work in the English language in the corporate pharma or life sciences sector. So I teach them medical interpretation. And I am not I'm not a paying visiting faculty. I've just been invited to do that, and I get that job every season. I have to interview for it every season, and I have to do it every season. And Csajtai and ELTE are two of the best universities we have in Hungary. So it's a question, or it's an ask from companies like ours towards HOA and HIPAA. What or how are we encouraging the government to come up with curriculums that can prepare their graduates for the future? Because in this last 1.5 years, it's now not just enough to be a language graduate. It's not enough to be an engineering graduate. It's not enough to be an IT graduate or whatever skill that you want to acquire. You have to be ready to go out in the real world and be able to cope with this whole, I'm going to work virtually, I'm going to be using cloud technology, I'm going to be doing Zoom, and plus I will do whatever else that I'm supposed to do, So what is the government doing to prepare fresh graduates for that? And that's an important question, because until that is answered, until that is sorted, we will keep pushing work out.
Thanks a lot, Juanita. I would like to ask Paul and Praveen to add their opinions. So I would like to ask Paul to join us now.
Okay, so a lot of has been said. Maybe two things I would add here. One is that what COVID brought in, that trend had started before, is just being accelerated. So if we think about the capabilities in technology, the language neutralization capabilities, the translation services that's happening, that's already had been challenging, that why you need to be in a certain place, how is the local capabilities, how much it is important. It's just like now we are seeing that, okay, from a vantage point of 1,000 people finance company in Genpact in Hungary, it took us 3 days to push everyone home. And after that, we could have all the work being done anywhere from the world, but it's just missing that point that people are social creatures, and especially if we new hire individuals, they really would like to have the sensation of belonging. And it's very difficult to do if we don't have that physical presence. We don't have the opportunity to meet each other. How do we create that culture that the company represents for someone who's joining the organization? People would like to work for a company that they're proud of. How they can be proud of if it's difficult to be part of CSR events, for example, which was a main driver. So I think that working from home, remote work, I think it's great, and we were super optimistic about it. Like, we're never going to go back to the office. And then 4 months after, whatever, midsummer last year, we started to realize that we need to go back to the office. Maybe not as we had been before. It's not going to be a full-time engagement. We're going to do transactional work 40 hours a day from the office. But time to time, we gotta go back. Maybe it's 1 day a week, maybe it's 2 days a week. But we have to drive that collaboration amongst the team. We have to facilitate that. We bump into each other on the corridor and having that casual discussion, which in a virtual environment is very, very difficult to do. So I think the model is going to be changing. I think it's still going to be a very relevant question, like what is that aspect that needs to be onshore, nearshore? And my point to that is that maybe someone can learn a language, but if they are very different and far from a cultural perspective, the collaboration with the customers, the collaboration with the colleagues is not going to be as fluent, and that making work being done a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. So I think that cultural aspect is still going to be a major driver. My belief is that work to support Central Europe is going to be best to be done from Europe. Maybe language perspective, you can move it somewhere else, but I think we're going to be missing that, a catalyst that's going to make things click, that's going to make things more productive.
Thanks a lot, and I would be happy to hear Pravin's opinion about what Paul just discussed.
Yeah, thank you. Just continuing on what Paul said, it's very important. I know the last point that he was talking about is keeping Europe-related work in Europe is also, from a data privacy standpoint, is going to make it very, very helpful and keep it a lot closer and a lot less complex. I think my other peers, including Vanita specifically, spoke about a lot of these things in terms of virtual working. What we believe is that the hybrid model, which is, I think some of the panelists already touched upon, is part work from home and be in the office is what is going to be the way we work in the future. Specifically, the objective of the office is predominantly going to be for relationships, engagement, and work on highly critical activities, creative thinking. It could be design thinking workshops, etc., and more of mentoring as well as informal networking. So that's what we believe. And again, COVID has proven that work from home is possible. We were, from 95% work from office, we were nearly 98% work from home in about 5 days when the lockdown was announced, because we had started this digital journey a long time ago. That's the only point that I had in terms of, in addition to what the others already spoke about. The second point is in terms of just the skills standpoint. What we believe in IBM is, each of our digital journey as well as transformation is not complete or is not going to be successful if it is not very closely associated with the skills of our employees. And that's an important aspect that each of the panelists already touched upon. So again, going back to the earlier point that I mentioned, is that what we believe today is techno-functional roles. Roles that were very process specific, SME specific roles are now also required to have a certain level of technical knowledge. It could be a part of the automation, running a robot, etc., from an RPA standpoint. And that we're seeing even in the human resources space, highly complex tasks like payroll, compensation, etc., are adopting robotic process automation a lot more. We have great examples of that for both IBM in-house as well as of some of our clients, larger clients that we serve. So the skills enhancement for the digital journey of each of the organizations is very important. And that's something that we as an industry need to focus on. That's what I would like to summarize.
Thanks a lot. And jumping into our fourth one, we talked a lot about how we can attract more and more organizations to come, but it's a crucial and often neglected question to discuss how we can keep those operations within the country once they are here in Hungary. And during the continuous restructuring era, there are services that are relocated or other countries are supporting those, or due to digitization, they are completely dismissed. My question would be, how do you think, what could be the role of Hungary to keep these operations within the country? And I would like to ask Miklós first to answer this question.
Sure, thanks a lot for the question. And probably my question back would be, do we really want to keep all what's been brought in, and do we want to keep it the same way? And probably my answer is no, because I feel the life cycle of shared services of the BSS sector is really just throwing it in, non-standard processes, so probably broken processes in many cases, fixing it, stabilizing it, automating it, standardizing it, bringing to a gold standard, and then probably most of the work is already gone that was related to that part. So I think the maturity cycle is always going and is always changing, and the scope is changing as well. So to me, it's more about how we can adapt to those new challenges, how we can adapt to those higher value add roles, how we can develop what we've been already referring to a couple of times, how we can focus on the L&D, the learning and development bit, to bring in new capabilities, to prove to the business that we have we can go into the commercial direction, we can make a bigger impact on what's happening in the business. So if we just following that cycle and maintaining a very focused business relationship and understanding what the business needs to be more successful, then I feel shared services will be successful as well. The other two, I think, have been mentioned as well. Probably what's on my mind on that is branding. And beside the country branding that we were talking about, I feel there is a lot we can still do on promoting the BSS industry as such in Hungary, to promote more and more people and show them that there is a long-term professional challenge ahead of them if they are joined, and they can think really on a long scale once they are joining a shared service center. And then the last one probably is what you've been also touching base on, some of you, is what is the new world going to bring? And if I'm purely thinking about Hungary, how we can mobilize the countryside more. And I'm not even talking about the bigger cities, but probably even in smaller cities, villages, if people are located there for some good reason, and whether that might be some disability, for example, how we can bring those people into the picture and make sure that it's not only Budapest focus where we are seeking our resources for, but on a much more wider scale. And then the questions I've seen on the chat as well, is it only Hungary or can we go broader? Again, probably a topic to discuss, but this is where my thoughts really are, and it's really about continuous changing and adopting to the business needs and improving our talent pool to adopt more to the value-add activities.
Thanks a lot. And István?
Yes, so I fully agree what was shared by Miklós, so I don't want to repeat these thoughts again. Maybe a couple of thoughts, not just from a country, but also our leaders' responsibility perspective as well. And when I'm saying this, I cannot forget and put aside that I'm not an Englishman in New York, but I'm a Hungarian in Hungary and leading a site which is a captive site. And obviously my first priority is to make sure that my company is successful, but I also want to make sure that the people who are working in Hungary, they are not just living in a safe and working in a safe environment, but they are also growing together with the company. And in the last couple of months, I think the sector provided very strong statement and messages saying that we can work from home. Yes, we can keep the quality of the services, the SLAs and KPIs, But I also believe that we have to be very careful with these messages, because if we say that now we can work from home, and which means that people can work from anywhere basically, or we don't need to worry about recruitment in the future anymore, we can give up even spaces and offices. What the headquarters will think about these messages? They can say easily, now it's time to move everything more further, because now people can work from anywhere and we don't need offices as well. Because for the multinational companies, our headquarters, what are important still is our culture, values, including safety and engagement. So that's why I believe that the truth is somewhere in between, in the middle. And we have to be very careful what we are saying. We are just saying that, for example, flexibility. I also saw the questions about offices, for example. I think the question is not just whether we need offices or whether we need to go back to our offices. The question is now is that really when we will be in the office, what will we do? When we are working from home in the future, what we will do in the future and when we are working from home. And also fully agree what Pa said in the past, that I truly believe that we will not go back where we were in March 12 months ago, but this is not something what we will continue what we started in March a year ago. So one more thought from my side. I think it's also a nature of this sector that employees who are working in the SSC environment, I think still 95+% is still graduated and having either leaving colleges or universities, which will be the same in the future. So we have to admit and saying that we are fine if we let leave the less complex jobs in the future, maybe to be outsourced or moving somewhere else. If on the other hand, there will be more complex jobs coming to Budapest, because we proved a lot we will be able to do, and we will be able to cover these jobs. And if this will happen, I truly believe that the net impact will be still positive for the sector here in Hungary. And those people who are just graduated will be more happy to stay and being engaged with the companies if they have more complex jobs in the future, which will be also a part of the success of this sector.
Thanks a lot. And last but not least, I have a very difficult question to ask from Rahul, because you have an experience in difficult times, and I would be really interested about how we can support cost-cutting initiatives and still maintain some part of the operation within the country. And how do you see how from the Hungarian organization we can support regional or global decisions?
Right. Thank you very much. I mean, indeed, I wouldn't say it's a difficult question, but yes, the situation can be challenging. I would like to be in the shoes of Miklós, where I can say that we have 26% organic growth. And my challenge is like, how will I hire people, right? But when you have a challenge of a reduction of revenue by 50%, now that's a challenge you need to deal with. And more so, as I said earlier, since the outbreak, we have, as an organization, focused on 3 priorities. I may be repeating myself, but it's important to reiterate. Our number 1 priority has always been the health and safety of our employees and customers. I think most of us have been working towards that. But followed by, most important for us was, we don't have a very high margin industry that we work for. So reserving our cost in every possible way, making sure that we are reserving as much as cash possible, and reducing our fixed cost and variable cost. I mean, that was a key focus that we were working on. And you must be reading, what has happened to our competitor as well. I mean, Hertz went bankrupt, filed for Chapter 11 in the US. We didn't want it to end up in that situation. It wasn't just led by COVID pandemic, but also, they had their issues on their balance sheet for last 2 years. But we were always looking at
we have some technical problems, I suppose, with Rahul.
Yeah.
Hopefully he will be back soon. We're waiting one more sec. If not, then we'll jump to the next question. Fortunately, he's lost. So if he is not returning back, then I would like...
He's back.
He's back. Oh, perfect. We lost you for a sec.
Yeah, it was a challenging question, so probably Mike didn't like it. But yeah, so just I was answering that, you know, working through, you know, different reforms, you know, we moved a lot of our regional employees on furlough as well, furlough scheme, etc. Hungary, you know, unfortunately could not cater to those furlough requirements specific to our industry, although we were in discussions with HIPAA. And, you know, Monica asked like where HOA and organizations such as HOA can play a vital role probably in future. And I think this is where, you know, if something like this pandemic or a critical situation that happens in future where shared service center as a sector gets impacted, what can, as an organization, HOA can play a key role. And of course, you know, COVID itself has led to a significant disruption. It was challenging, but a great learning experience for all of us. I think our employees, they understood all the tasking and the tough decisions that we took. Proudly, we used to be an organization of 1,300 people. Today as well, we are a sizable organization of 750 people in Budapest. And we have all the plans to grow the center when the times are right. But of course, you know, we are not going to take steps just in haste. We will be looking at upskilling our resources. You know, it was just mentioned by Miklós as well. We'll be looking at opportunities. Do we really need to perform all the activities from our center? Maybe a lot of activities can be automated, can be managed by some third parties, so that we can bring and look at bringing in Budapest more value-add tasks. So I am pretty positive, along with my colleagues. I see Damien as well on the panel here. You know, so we are looking at this as a huge opportunity for our support center.
Thanks a lot. And you already mentioned the sectoral collaboration and the role of the sectoral collaboration. And what we feel that compared to other sectors, the service center sector is not a very matured one, or there are still room for further development. And how do you see how we can coordinate better and how we can enhance the cooperation between sectoral members? And basically, you also mentioned the governmental help, but how do you see how the government could further help this sector? And I would like to ask Jeroen to answer first.
Yeah, yes, thanks. I mean, to me, it comes to a bit to the branding, right? I think we need to, you know, that's how we can cooperate, and that's what will make us stronger, and we all will benefit from that. You know, one initiative that some of my fellow panel members signed up for, you know, the BSS Hungary project that was launched there with AmCham, HIPAA, HOA, and it's really to raise the awareness and attractiveness of the sector. I think that's going to be key in my view. So, you know, I do think that HOA has an important role to play in that, to coordinate that, right? The reality is also that every business is focused on their own, has its targets to deliver. So you need, you know, somebody that almost herds the sheep together, right? And I think organizations like an AmCham and HIPAA, but also HOA, play an important role and really provide an avenue to escalate, to get quick access to the people that made. I mean, it was mentioned before here. You know, what happens, right? If something happens, who do we turn to? How can we quickly, you know, get in contact with the right people for things that impact our sectors? I think Rahul said it very nicely. So that's where we see, you know, the role of HOA and others to really be that voice of the sector. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Thanks a lot. Melanie, would you be up to comment it as well?
Yeah, I think I agree, but I think there's also very sector specific as in sectors within this sector specific. So for example, 2 years ago, we created a US financial services companies sort of cooperation group within AmCham, which was us, Morgan Stanley, MSCI, Citi, because I think we had some very specific areas that affected us all. We couldn't be seen to be collaborating because we can't collaborate, but having a group under AmCham to enable us all to bring those same issues to the table, to have one voice, and it becomes a louder voice because it's not just one of you, it's a group of you. That's was really helpful for us as we started to look at things like talent, like university alignments, like the types of roles we wanted for the future, the skill sets we needed. It really helped us to come together as a group and drive some of that change more. And I see that becoming more and more important. And again, it becomes a real attraction to other companies to know that, and I think Jeroen said it, this idea of building that bigger talent pool, building some of those different opportunities for companies, we have to start being able to collaborate more. And the role that HIPAA, HOA, AmCham can play in doing that is key to making it work and be really, really productive.
We got a question from Monica that how do you feel the sector could be loud enough to be represented in front of the government? Do you feel that there is a need for this? And I would like to ask Pa to answer this. Pal, can you hear?
Yeah, I'm muting myself. Probably the most heard comment these days, right? Sorry, I was on mute. So Prabal mentioned that what are the competitive advantages for any locations, right? And the first he started with is that the business aligned environment. So this is vitally important, and that there are certain discussions happening, and while a 1,000 strong company, let it be Genpact, we have very little leverage and representation capability. If you are talking to the government for 75,000 people as an industry, then that's a whole lot different ballgame. So I think there is a need to create that business aligned environment that allows us to grow faster. And also there is a need, and it has been said before on the educational piece, that what is the industry recognition among the late teenagers? How do they think about this? Has anyone in high school having an idea that I would like to work in a shared service center and not thinking of something negative? And I think that's really important to figure out, like, how we can blend that into that curriculum. And also later in the higher education system, is that really pointing out that what are those studies, learnings, etc. That's very, very important for someone to be successful. So we can grow the talent pool together, and although everyone is suffering from talent shortage, but if the pool is growing faster than our needs, then this is going to be a happy place. And all of those things, I believe, is through a shared representation and having those decision makers see that we are talking for an industry or industry segment employing 80,000 people, which that could be as many as 200,000 people, including families. So I think this is an important point.
Thanks a lot. And there is a specific question to BPO companies from Monica's side, that compared to Poland, Czech Republic, Romania, and other surrounding countries, is this a unique voice, or how do you feel? Is there a significant difference between Hungary and those countries?
Maybe if I can answer that.
Thanks.
Take an attempt on this, being exposed to all these countries. There's a fundamental difference between Hungary's setup and these other countries. Hungary has a predominant share of so-called captives, whereas other countries are quite balanced. Okay, when it is balanced, it is there's more opportunity and diversity there, and when it is captive intensive, then the variety of skills and things are different, because for a captive, the interest is to reduce cost from their existing set of operations, standardized from the global set of operations, right? So their priorities not necessarily always has to, as I mentioned in my other response, that there has to be a balance between an individual company's immediate requirement versus a country's overall long-term positioning. The other thing that I have seen, which is very common in retail industry, people who are familiar with it, is called agglomerization. So you will see the retail stores, particularly like Spar, Prima, etc., they open in the neighborhood of streets. Not that I mean, it's sometimes it sounds very counterintuitive. Why you would want to open a shop next to your competition? Because they want to share the market. So now Poland and others have got that advantage. They already had a significant population. So the next guy who comes in says that, I have in Poland. So competition is there everywhere. Competition for talent is there everywhere. But by virtue of having established base and by virtue of having this, what you call wide variety, it is easier for a new company to get talent in, and then it grows. So one of my friend who is in the recruitment business told me that he got maybe 2 clients in 1 year, and his partner in Poland got maybe 20 in 1 year, same 1 year, right? So that's the propensity of attractiveness. Talent quality wise, both the same. Cost wise also probably both the same. Hungary used to be higher cost because of the social security tax, etc., which has come down. But this is the reality that we are seeing for every style. We see the propensity to go to Poland because of this agglomeration effect.
Thanks a lot. And we are now starting the Q&A session. So please feel free to either drop questions or to ask questions to our fellow participants. There were some preliminary defined questions. So I tried to kind of ask some of them, and we are going to answer you later on in writing for those that were not answered. There were many questions focusing on the people side and the HR side of the current situation. And I would like to pick 1 or 2 as a joint question.
Sorry, can we pick up the, I'm also looking at the questions, so we obviously probably cannot answer all, and we will answer those in writing. There is a question from Jean-Luc Michel. How do you see the office space capacity to be when more home office possibilities are made available? Could we consider the office capacity share reduced for a given headcount? So any thoughts on that? Anyone, feel free.
So perhaps I can take that, Monica. Okay. Like I said, hot desking is not a new concept in Hungary. It's been around for over a decade now. It's become familiar to industries outside the IT industry because of the COVID situation. So what I see happening is that a lot of new businesses are going to be hybrid. Some people or some teams working from the office, and rest of the staff, going into this work from home mode, or 2 days in the office and the rest working from home. So I would say that the real estate uptake will probably stabilize, if not decrease. There is also this general pushback from the real estate industry. So I can give you our own example. When we went back to our landlords and said, can we have some discounted rents because we are in the COVID era and we are not using your offices full time? And the answer was obviously no. So this is another area where probably HOA and HIPAA can support to getting reductions in rent rates. But generally, with the current situation and with the spreading of employees, into neighboring countries or into work from home situations, real estate uptake will definitely stabilize. There will be few investors who've made commitments in the past, or who are seeing, you know, a large influx of work from office type of businesses that might look for new real estate, but generally, you know, it should stabilize and we shouldn't be expanding more.
Thank you.
Thanks
Do
a
you mind,
lot.
Vera, if I will pick up the next one?
No problem.
Okay, there is a question from Zoltan Dobszai. How do you see the SSC's real capability in driving process digitalization and automation? And how did pandemic situation impact such initiatives? What are the challenges you face, like internal bureaucracy, budget cuts available, and so on? Let's go around the table. István, let's go with you. How is about the captive environment? How do you see the future of automation? Sorry.
Well, I think if there was something which was just speed up in the past, was really just automation. So at least what my experience is that we did not stop it. We just even wanted to boost this kind of experience just to make sure that we will standardize and then automate as much as we can. And I also believe that we proved also from this perspective that for such work, we don't need always people outside of our environment. People who are working in the shared service environment, working in shared services, can have this kind of skill set, or if they don't have yet, they can easily learn it. So I do believe that that's a great opportunity for the people when we are saying that climbing up on the value chain, having more and more these type of jobs in the shared services, and then also education.
Anyone else to comment?
Monica, if I may comment one line with what Istavan just said. I think it is for us to understand that if something can be automated, and if we do not do it, somebody else will do it, right? So that's given. And one thing, if somebody is struggling to do it, they can always come to us. We can help you.
We didn't realize it was a TCS sales pitch, Prabal. You did a good
job.
No,
we didn't realize that we are on family, right? We are expecting your help. I didn't say I will
somebody
charge
had to say it.
I didn't say that I will charge for you this one.
But you're right. I mean, if I can add something, Monica, as I said earlier,
yes.
our front office business is redefining the way we operate in the back office. You know, the customer touch points with human interaction is reducing day by day. Our customers want more digital platforms to rent cars through Alexa, through apps. Similarly, our back office operations needs to support those front office changes to the business environment. So I think the time is right. We need to start to think like business. If your business demands to go more automated, more digital, that's how your back office operations needs to transform. Simple as that. So people like Prabal, Vanita, everybody, you know, plays a key role. They have huge potential. Yeah, so we can.
And that's not a sales pitch, right? That's not a sales pitch.
No, he's delegating tasks now.
That's reality. That's reality. I mean, this is the fact. I mean, not every organization has that potential of training their own shared service people to learn these tools and make them do this work. So if organization feels challenged in that respect, of course, the service providers can help them. And when I'm talking about it, they're not talking only about TCS perspective, but our colleagues as well.
But to elaborate
the point is that we have to do it, otherwise somebody else will do it.
Thank you. And that will be us, Prabal.
Sorry. Next question, if you don't mind. There is an interesting one, and this time I would go to captive colleagues, please. Just to avoid the sales pitches for BPO companies, by the way. Okay, so there is a question from Zuzana Zoni. Today, remote job offers still many mean it's possible to work from home, but employers usually look for employees from Hungary. How do you see the near future? Will remote work soon mean anyone can apply, even from the other side of the world, for full-time remote work? How will it affect employee experience if there is no personal interaction between team members at all? That's a lovely question. I don't know. Yeah, captive colleagues, please go ahead. Anyone? How do you see this? Is this a reality, really? I mean, honestly, without taboos. Will this become a reality? I know one company who is already doing this in Hungary. I cannot promote the company.
I think if I can just start by saying that we don't need to go far away. First of all, look at the opportunity here that, you know, people had to move from small, somebody was talking about villages, you know, I think Hungary has great villages and some towns as well. But this is an opportunity from somebody from Debrecen or Moshan Mojarova, you know, my Hungarian town pronunciation is not that bad. They can kind of be hired from anywhere they are living in Hungary. That's one part. Two, of course, we need to abide by the EU laws, taxation laws as well, so that we avoid double taxation. But that's something for both employees and employer to consider. But it's a great opportunity for Hungarians, and why not Hungarians will be hired by, you know, international companies from abroad. You know, tomorrow maybe, you know, some of us will be working for some BPOs based in India, you know, so we will be hired here and but working for a company abroad.
And get
Having
Indian
said that,
salary.
we have
Sorry.
exactly. But we have realized in Avis, since pandemic broke out, we have a couple of examples where our employees, they felt more comfortable working from their hometowns, whether it was in Italy or Spain or in Scandinavia, and they moved back. And kind of, we are flexible enough to understand that these are the times we need to support. But this has slowly started to become a norm as well. And Vanita was talking about, you know, facility strategy, and this is going to drive our future facility strategy as well. It is just how we can make a secure environment. There's a pressure on IT to give that, you know, better equipment and infrastructure availability. But this is how we need to adapt to in future as well. But I think it's a great opportunity that all those skill set issues that we talk about, we can fulfill because of this becoming more global now. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, you know, I think just to counter that a little bit, I think it definitely will provide opportunities, right, and great opportunities. On the other hand, I think we also need to realize that, you know, although we are probably all worn out by the pandemic by now, you know, we're still, in my view, ahead of a journey, right? We had it a year. I think we survived a lot on adrenaline, and we don't know what the long-term effects are going to be yet. I think Paul mentioned it, if I recall correctly, right? You know, people will continue to have a need for a sense of belonging. I mean, if you look at my company, I'm sure my fellow panelists are well. You know, the biggest risk we see is the mental health of our employees. People get isolated, you know, that live on a flat on their own, somewhere in you know 20 square meters somewhere in the city. So I think there will be a bit of a natural reaction as well, that people will look for that sense of belonging. And let's face it, we as human beings are not programmed to live in solitude, right? We are people that like to connect for the most part. There will be exceptions. So although I see also the opportunities, I think it's still very early days. And I think, you know, you can really make that judgment in a few years. I mean, any behavioral change, and we've all gone through programs in our corporation where we want to change the leadership culture. We want to do, you know, the first thing we always say is it will take years. It doesn't go overnight. So I feel it's still very early. It will have some benefits, but you know, in a year's time there might be a bit of a counter reaction as well. So to draw a lot of conclusions yet, I do feel it's a bit premature. That it will change, yes, but as dramatic as people might see now, I'm not sure.
I have if you don't mind, because we are close to our timing, but I have one taboo question, which is really in my mind since the beginning of this panel. I was waiting whether I should raise it or not, but then I will. And my question is actually a combined question related to upskilling, reskilling, and receiving value at work in Hungary, and letting the work go somewhere out of Hungary. So today, to my knowledge, there is no certain study which combines the work which left the country, because we are all aware about work coming to the country, but we are not aware about work leaving the country. Okay. We are, since long years, there is a discussion about for companies to get more and more value add to Hungary and receive more value add jobs. And obviously, you know, the non-value add to do something with it, let's say this way, to move it, to digitalize it, to do whatever with it. What are we really talking about in terms of balance, right? What is what we are really able to receive? What we think is what we are letting go? and how much we think in the reality, how fast we can upskill and reskill our workforce to be able to receive more. It's a combined question, I know. I don't know who can answer that even in different modules. So I will leave it to the panel to react. Is it that difficult? Yeah.
Well,
it's a difficult one.
I'll
go Melanie first.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so if I look at it through the lens of how we approach this, was we approach this not through a lens of what are the low skill tasks we can bring to Budapest and then how do we upskill. We actually went the other way. And we said, let's look at the talent we can find in Hungary and match that to what we can actually achieve and do. And that means we haven't had to go through this process of upskilling. We've brought people in, but trained them into what we need. Because let's be honest, it's very rarely you'll find the perfect fit person that can hit the ground running and do that job. They need an element of training. And we looked at it through an angle of let's bring people in with the potential, that have the right mindset, the right behaviors, ability, desire to learn, and let's train them to do the roles that we really need, that really add value, even if they're completely new roles to BlackRock. And that's really helped us not have to go through that, bring stuff, let it go, bring some next level and build up. We've been able to start at that high level. And I think that does take an investment in training up front. It does take an ability and a desire to take a little bit of risk on people. But the ongoing engagement you get and that impact people can see that they're not a second-class citizen to other people in the company. They're not doing work that nobody else wants to do. They are a peer to people in London, New York, etc.
So I would like to elaborate a little bit on what Melanie just said. I would bring in two examples to answer this question from France. So there is this little town by the name of Grenoble in France that was, kind of my place to visit twice a year. And it's best known as the town where Michael Schumacher went for his treatment after his accident. But anyway, so in Grenoble, you have this company called ST Microelectronics, and they manufacture microchips. And these chips are in almost 2 or 3 everyday objects that all of us use in our homes. And what they have achieved is they have their influence in local engineering colleges in Grenoble. And about half the graduates that come out of Grenoble are already, when they come out of college, they are ready to work for ST Microelectronics in various roles. There's another small town in France. It's Pont-de-Clay, and Becton Dickinson, which is a company that manufactures small pharmaceutical devices, has done the same thing. So France has taken, focus out of its big cities and focused on universities in small towns, set up colleges in small towns that are, partly funded by companies that are using these towns as manufacturing hubs or, hubs for driving talent. So in this panel, for example, most of us, have shared service centers or captive BPOs in Budapest. What we've not explored are, or what we've not done today, or perhaps we have, maybe I'm just ignorant about it, is reach out to shared service centers and BPOs in B cities and C cities in Hungary, which is what HIPAA wants to promote as well. And we've got universities in these small towns. So to try and educate a large amount of population in Budapest may not be possible, but there are other European countries who are, initiating these education programs in smaller cities, something that Hungary can explore, but it takes a lot of investment, a lot of commitment, and it will take a big voice, from our industry. So like, I think it was Paul that said it earlier, or or maybe I'm wrong, 1,000, voice of 1,000 people or a manager of a company that represents 1,000 people is not enough. But if we come together as an industry and say, these are the changes that we want with 75, with a labor force of 75,000 strong behind us, we can make that change. And there are plenty of examples in Europe to look to.
Thank you very much. And we are slightly beyond the time, and our session is open till 6:30. So in order to make sure that we don't get kicked off by Zoom, I just would like to close this panel, and I would like to thank you all for sharing your thoughts and your ideas and your opinions. And I personally have already 7 points on my list just as HOA to do. And we didn't even explore that topic very much, but I'm sure we will have an opportunity to do so in the future. But I personally felt very well, and not because we are holding this panel, but just because the topic and the topics in general are, to me, are fascinating. I hope the audience felt the same way. So I would like to thank you all. And if I can ask the panelists just stay on the Zoom for 5 more minutes. And I would like to thank our audience for being with us. And I hope they will join us in the coming sessions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks a lot
for the opportunity.